What's up? This is Adam, and
And Mr.
I got Aiden.
Heathers,
I got Aiden with me. For
what's
our
poppin'?
project, we're doing a podcast on the movies we watch for modern muckrakers. I watched China Undercover, and
I watched Amazon Empire.
um, I actually tweeted out at Ryan Reynolds to try and get him to do an intro for this podcast. So hopefully he comes through with that. I highly doubt it, but it was
That'd
worth
be
a shot.
that'd be pretty sweet. But we
You
don't
know,
we don't think that's gonna happen.
get some Deadpool and up in here.
Yeah.
But so starting off, my film that I watched was China Undercover. This was produced by Robin Barnwell and Jesbeen Mohammed. It was a Frontline documentary, and it actually came out last night at 10 p.m. So I stayed up and I watched it. And then it was described as by Frontline as a special undercover report from China's secretive Xinjiang region. Frontline investigates the communist regime's mass imprisonment of Muslims and its use and testing of sophisticated surveillance technology against the Uyghur community. So, Aiden, you want to
So
go for
so
yours?
does that mean like they're recording their people's like every movements kind of so like wherever people go, they're under 24-hour surveillance?
Pretty much. I'll get more into that later. I talk a lot
Yeah.
about that actually.
So about the Amazon Empire when it starts off the I would say probably the first 30 to 45 minutes of the hour and 50-minute documentary is about Jeff Bezos and how he is the richest man in the world and how he came to all of his money. And that's the part that I really liked. And it just kind of looks over how much Amazon really means to the world and how much power Jeff Bezos has in like everything we have to do with in life. And then it explores the problems and the working conditions inside Amazon's fulfillment centers. So there's just a lot of problems with the workers and the pace of work they have to do, and if they don't meet certain company requirements, that they'll get fired or written up. So yeah, that's pretty much the overview.
Yeah, I watched that with Aiden, or not with him. I watched it later. It's definitely Amazon. It definitely changed my opinion on Amazon.
I mean,
So
I still think Amazon's pretty good. I like them, but yeah, they have some doing. They have
I,
to work on their
I
employees and conditions. But
you kind of have to like them because they're kind of the biggest company
yeah, and
right
then
now.
they own basically everything in the world, which I'll get into that later.
Okay, so moving
So
on to just we'll go over our opinion on the film, some opening statements, and any comments we want to make. Oh, so starting out, I really enjoyed watching the film. I think it did a great job of showing how Uyghurs, those are Muslims living in China, uh, shows how they pretty much have no human rights in the Xinjiang region. Definitely changed my view on China as a country. I always saw China as like a technological empire, like not empire in a bad way, but they're always leading in technology. They're always number one. From videos, pictures, you always see how advanced they are. Like that stuff interests me. But now after watching this film, it shows completely otherwise. How they're using this technology to pretty much spy on their citizens. So while I was watching, I took a lot of notes on my phone the whole time. So I kept some pretty good knowledge about what they talked about, and it's not too far out there, um, like messed up. It's pretty. I'll cut that out. Um, I took some notes on my phone, and I and kept kept going throughout the film, so I have a pretty detailed account of what happened, and it's not the talking points are not uh, different to what the film actually showed. Um, so
I think that's super unfair that they're under surveillance. Like you're basically in prison, but at your house. Like
oh
you
well,
everywhere you go, people
do
see.
you want to hear about prison? I'll tell you about prison later. This China, they got some sketchy stuff going on. But
All right, well,
so
try.
I got a couple more things I just want to say. Um, so this film did show some footage of people getting run over by cars and terrorist attacks by Uyghurs. And I believe this was after China's new president got elected, and he made an announcement that more or less said that Chinese will be the master race in the country, and other nationalities and religions will be wiped out. Kind of similar to you know who, but emphasis on more or less. He didn't say this word for word, but that's kind of what he was meaning when he said that. So then the last thing, a big topic that's going to be relevant throughout my talking points is the camps that people are sent to. The Chinese government, when Frontline asked about them, said that they were not building these camps in the middle of nowhere, but satellite footage or pictures show otherwise. You could see the camps pictures just slowly being built and then finished. And by the government, they say these camps are re-education camps for citizens who are losing their nationality. So they basically play these camps off as learning centers, and that the people inside are treated with respect, and there's no like harsh treatment of anyone in there. They even show a commercial for the camps, and there's these bunch of students in the classroom, and I thought this was really crazy. They're just reciting a bunch of Chinese, and they literally look like robots doing it. Then someone else a woman got interviewed, and she looks like she's being held at gunpoint. Not that she actually was. It just
that part's crazy.
The whole interaction looks scripted, and that her answer to the question was scripted, and like she kind of had to say it. And then what I even thought was crazy is there's drone footage of people on their knees and in shackles and blindfolded, surrounded by police. So these were a bunch of people who were, which I'll get into more, got detained, or I'll get into how they got detained, which is even crazier. Then outside relatives say that they've lost contact with these people, their family members on the inside. Then another person who was willing to talk said every family in Xinjiang has someone inside the camps, and to me that's crazy. And then
because there's a lot of people in China.
Yeah, you got a lot of families, a lot of bloodlines there.
Yeah.
So one person, a woman who wanted to talk, Raima, I think it is. She was detained for 12 months, and get this why. It was for having WhatsApp on her phone. So it's pretty crazy. I'll get in. It's even worse how these people get detained. So I'll get into that later. Aiden, if you want to go ahead and put your opening statements.
So yeah, they just like I said earlier, comes out, talks about how big Amazon is, how they started, and they actually interview multiple former and current employees to like talk about the business, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But so first, when Jeff Bezos was creating Amazon, he wanted it to be called Relentless, but he didn't want people. His higher up when he was starting said it should be called Relentless because that was his main focus with his business was never stop, like always. And his big thing was obsessing over the customer. So I think that's mostly why these working conditions are poor for people, and it makes them go as fast as possible because the small idea that they first wanted to be was relentless, and being relentless is never stopping, never giving up. And they keep saying multiple times over and over, obsessing over the customer. They want to obsess over the customer and do whatever they can to make the customer happy. So that's next day delivery, that's 2-day delivery. So that's with all this new fast delivery stuff, that's how they're obsessing over their customer to please them, to make them want to come back and buy more. But that has a ton of downfall too, because I mean, how do you, with a human being, how do you give them 20 seconds to tape up a box, put the thing in the box, put packaging peanuts in the box, tape it up again, put the shipping label on it, and send it out the door? I mean, it's just almost near impossible. And to do that for 8-hour days with only a couple, I mean, it's just crazy. But so yeah, then the name Amazon, it means ginormous, and that's really what Amazon is. I mean, they own everything. They have that Amazon Alexa, which comes in an Echo Dot. So basically, smart home technology they have. they have that they own the doorbell ring. So when you ring a doorbell, it has a video and it goes to your phone. They own Whole Foods, which is a big time grocery store, and
Jesus.
they're developing face recognition for like smart homes. Jeff Bezos donate or provides $1 billion of his own worth to space travel in his space exploration company. And I mean, he has power. He what he did was he bought the Washington Post. Now that Washington Post, big paper, you have the New York Times, everything. So the Washington Post, it was about to go out of business. He stepped in, bought it all out, all his rights. Now he has access to put out stories about Amazon that he wants with the Washington Post. So that was another big thing, was he can basically control what newspaper articles and what critics say about Amazon to sort of hide the working conditions and the bad things. He wanted to put out only good information. So that was part of the speculation from other people of why the big reason he bought the Washington Post.
So,
So,
so, so Jeff Bezos is pretty much the embodiment of relentless, or his
I mean, the
definition of
CIA pays
relentless.
him to store the data because the AWS, Amazon Web Services, stores all this data for Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all your big time applications. So they're storing all the data. So you know how you look up a sneaker, which I'm into sneakers, so I'll give sneakers an example. I get this all the time. Since I look up a ton of shoes, I'll be on StockX or Go and I'll look up a Jordan. I'll go on Instagram or Snapchat, and the next ad I see will be an ad for StockX or an ad for a sneaker on Wish app or an
Oh
ad
my, and
for a
I'm
fake
I'm
shoe.
doing a project on in English for about this topic, targeted online targeted
And
ads.
that's all behind Amazon because Amazon has access to all that data, and then they sell that data to Snapchat. So I mean, it's just the amount of money that is in this company is insane.
So
And
so
to
what
add
we're
on to
getting
that,
out of this is this guy's huge. He's big.
I mean, the CIA pays Amazon to
So
store the classified data. The
he's
CIA,
made it. So
yeah.
let's move on here. How the film was received publicly. Obviously, mine was released last night, April 7th. So I couldn't find much other than just watch it and I liked it. So it probably was received well. Aiden, if you want to
Mine was
dive into
yeah,
that.
it was released last month, about a month and a half ago, and I mean, it just brought all the issues. People that didn't really know this about Amazon until this came out, and now everyone knows about the issues inside the company. It's not
And,
just this big
and
superpower that is perfect.
I think a common theme between both our films is that they're both, probably all the films watched, is that they really show something that uh, normal people don't know. So, like for Amazon, no one really knew what their workers went through. From like normal people, average person, and like on my side, an average person really doesn't see China as being super like secure with facial recognition, cameras, security, all that kind of stuff. So
Mm.
just who made the films? My film was made by Robin Barnwell and produced by Jazbeen Mohammed. Uh, Robin's pretty well known. He's made over 50 documentaries for BBC, ITV, Channel 4, PBS. He won Journalist of the Year for the 2019 British Journalism Awards. This is all from his website. Very creative with the name robinbarnwell.com. Um, one quote, I saw a quote on his page that actually I really liked. He said, "I strive to tell powerful, dramatic human stories that give audiences real insight into our world. I believe this can be achieved through films that are cinematic, intimate, and raw." Uh, so I 100% agree with this quote. I think this could be the modern definition of muckraking, giving real insight into our world. And then some other films he did was Battle for Hong Kong, Undercover Inside China's Digital Gulag, which I'll probably end up watching, and Germany's New Nazis. Then for Jazbeen Mohammed, I honestly didn't find much about him. I just found his IMDb page, and it was pretty empty. So
Yeah, so the three big there's three producers for Amazon Empire. It was James Jacoby, Anaya Borg and Megan Robertson, and James Jacoby. He worked for 60 Minutes for about 10 years. Anaya Borg worked for 60 Minutes for about 9 years, and she uh, went in and documented the violence in Mexico. And then Megan Robertson worked for Net Geo Wild, BBC, and the New York Times, um, all up until 2015 when she became a producer for Frontline. And she produced a new approach to investigate journalism, and she would just gather hundreds and hundreds of hours of material on public figures to tell their stories in like in their own words. So
So
um
we're pretty much at a new stage of journalism here, and I think that's great because there's a lot of secrets around and that need to be investigated. And if we could get people to go undercover, find out what's going on, I think that could really bring light to some horrible things going on under the surface.
so I two most impactful scenes. Should we go there?
I was just gonna move
Discuss
down the
that thing.
list, go to point of view of the film, then we'll get there soon.
All
If
right.
that's okay with you. So point of view, like,
Let's.
and what ideas it was conveying. Um, like what kind of ideas the film was conveying. The point of view from China Undercover is from Lee. Lee is an alias for a Chinese person who Frontline got into contact with, and for Frontline, he went into Xinjiang and took video on a phone. So he posed as a businessman to be able to talk to some major surveillance companies to go try and talk business with them, but he really asked some questions about their involvement in Xinjiang and what their purpose there is, and a lot of mixed answers. Um, and don't quote me on this, but I believe in the beginning of this is great. The beginning of the film, Frontline is masking Lee's voice and blurring his face when possible, but at the end of the film, they meet back up with him a year later, and they showed him and his voice, clear picture of him, clear voice, so kind of defeating the point of hiding his identity. And what I think is even worse is that they show him with his kids. So I wouldn't be shocked and all of a sudden his kids go to quote unquote re-education camp over summer, mysteriously get taken to get re-educated. Little
So
dark there, but might
the
happen.
point of view of my film is it shows both. It shows it talks to, like I said earlier, many former and current employees, and then a lot of former and current higher up CEOs, big time people in the business, and they kind of go back. It's kind of like a back and forth, not really, but like indirectly, and like the like obviously the former employees, they're all against Amazon. It's unfair. Current employees are both ways, and then the higher ups are like, now what the higher ups were saying in their defense, which I also believe is good, is they pay higher than almost double minimum wage to the lowest employees in the factories. Obviously, way higher for their bigger time employees in their fulfillment factories. But they also give them health insurance, dental insurance, eye insurance, and they're pretty well like protected. They they
So
get
you're getting a
paid.
lot of benefits.
Yeah, they get a lot of benefits and they get paid well. So that's kind of what stuck out to me was, yeah, they're not treated like, yeah, they're asked a lot. They're asked a lot to do things. And a big thing that they kept saying was, we ask our employees to do a lot, but that's why we give them all these benefits. They give 4 weeks of paid vacation a year, even if you're working in a factory. So I mean, that's basically a month off being paid. So I mean, you're protected, but yes, it's hard work. But that's another thing in like the US society is people just want to get paid for the least amount of work, but they want to get paid really well. If you want to get paid really well, it's going to take hard work and long
Uh,
hours.
that's something that
So
people don't understand.
yeah, they just want to do the easy way and get paid a ton, which is a lost thing. Back in the old days, it was you would work as hard as you can all day long and get $50 a week. And now if you get $50 a week, it's the government's fault, not your fault that you don't want to like get out of bed and, go to work and work hard.
So let's
So
move on here to current state of the issue. Kind of how it's impactful to that issue, and just some general background knowledge of kind of what we know before watching these films. So in China Undercover, current state of the issue, kind of whatever was shown in the documentary is current because all this footage is from the past year. So all the information is pretty relevant. But I think this documentary will have major effects, and be very impactful because it's bringing to light what basically is cultural genocide of the Uyghurs, and it's going to bring that to people's homes if they watch this in their minds to think about. And that cultural genocide, that was a quote from some not informant, but someone they met with. They didn't give a name, but he did say that this is basically a cultural genocide of the Uyghurs. And I truly believe that due to Chinese censorship of the media, which is true, and that happens, try and go to China and look up Tank Man, you won't find it. The citizens of China will not see this film and continue to be brainwashed by their government. People on the inside who have been released from these camps are way too scared to talk about it. None of them agreed to talk about the camps to Frontline, and the only ones who would talk are those who escaped to Kazakhstan, China's neighboring country, and they were still visibly nervous to talk about it. So I always knew China was about had heavy surveillance, but I never knew it was this advanced, and they've taken advantage of people this much. So,
yeah.
Aiden, what
So
was yours?
the current state is Amazon hasn't really done much to help out their employees with the working conditions and pace of working and long hours and being on your feet all day long, because it really is. In the fulfillment center, you're running around, you got a little iPad and you're running around and you're you're picking up stuff, fulfilling orders. So they are making a little progress. They bought out this robot industry, and they're robots that go around and basically do what the people do. But then stuff on that is like, oh, robots are replacing my job. But like the robots do it faster than the humans do it. So it's good for the company, but the company's still keeping the people to do the work. And um like I said earlier about the current state, about the benefits, the higher pay. So I think I really stated that already, but still a work in progress, and they're still working towards figuring it out and trying to make it as best as possible as they can, because you can't make everyone happy. So they're just trying to make the majority happy.
So,
If we want to continue the two most impactful scenes now,
yeah, we could do that.
I'll start with that,
Let's do our two most impactful scenes, and then
and then
if you
we'll.
want to, I know I definitely did just some interesting scenes we had. I had a couple interesting that weren't really as major, but I thought
Yeah,
they should be talked about. So if you
it's
want to
getting a little
start
long.
your two favorite scenes,
Yeah,
just kind
we'll
of.
just talk about a couple more scenes, then we'll give our closing thoughts, and we'll end this little podcaster.
Oh yeah.
So so Amazon they started off by selling books. I don't know if you've known that, Mr. Kiefer, but they have sold he would buy. Jeff Bezos saw an industry right when the internet was kicking off. You can't go online and buy something. So his idea was to sell books. So they started off selling books and it blew up. So a big scene was they interviewed at the time the CEO and founder of Millville Publishing, and they interviewed him. And Amazon was trying to bump up. They were at, I believe it was around 5%. They said was like, or no, around 10%. Sorry, was like their what they took from every sale of the book, and they wanted to bump it up by an extra 4%. And the guy from Millville Publishing said no. So what Jeff Bezos did and at Amazon is they took away the buy button on every single Millville publishing book there
Jesus.
was that they sold on the website. So they couldn't, no one could go on there and buy a book. So he lost
That's
basically
awful.
all of his sales. So I mean, he controlled people.
That,
So
that's
and
terrible,
they
but it's
yeah,
kind
and
of
the
how
guy
you
mentioned
succeed.
mentioned a kick. It was a kickback, and I know we talked about that in class probably a month or so ago when we were talking about one of our lessons. He said it's a kickback. So, I mean, he was forced to pay the extra 4% to keep his publishing company alive, and he did it. So, yeah.
Do you have another scene, or you just had one?
You say one more scene, then I'll say another
All
one.
right.
Go back and forth.
My this first one is the scene where they talked about the homestay program and becoming family program. These are two similar programs ran by the Chinese government. I think this is bizarre and actually insane that they do this and people believe this. But government workers are said to be relatives of family, and they are sent into these households, and they gather information from a household, and then give said information to the government, back to the government. And the scene in the film basically showed this guy in there with like an iPad, iPhone, and just talking, getting information about these people, how they live, what they do, and then just reporting back to the government. And then I'll talk about this, I think, a little bit later, or yeah,
Yeah,
with my next scene. I'll get to that later. But these people, if they seemed out of line, they get detained and sent to quote unquote re-education camp, which is not re-education camp, and it is basically what's the word I'm looking for? A a bad camp, not good. Can't think of the right word. So then what even's crazier, later in this scene, it shows that houses are marked with barcodes, like literally barcodes printed on paper, taped to the front door, and these workers are to go around and scan these barcodes, and on their iPhone it shows, or phone, it just shows who's registered to live in that house, and if people are not registered to live in that house, they are kicked out and sent away. So
yeah.
that's pretty that's pretty crazy.
Um, so probably the next most important scene was right towards the beginning, mid through the movie, when they were talking about how they started off. Jeff had something like he could get whatever he wants, and he always had that attitude that he can do what he wants and get what he wants, and no one's going to stop him. So when he was looking for investors, he would go up to them and to other big banks and companies that couldn't get money from these big time investors. Jeff Bezos, from making only probably it was around 10,000 a week first, like, and then by like that was like the first 2 weeks. Then after that, he was like, I need investors. Within a month, 2 months, it was 20 grand a week. So it was pretty skyrocketing already. But in the early, like before he even lost, he in 1997, he went to a group of investors and said, hey, invest in this business, and I promise you, in 20 years, you will have more money than you won't know what to do with. And these investors kind of laughed with him. But then like he got real with it and he was like, no, you're not in 2 years gonna make your money back. In 20 years, you're gonna make it's gonna be a long time, but you keep a ton of money. So one of the leaders, investor, SEC Filling, it was by Bloomberg. Um, they invested $245,573 in Amazon in 1997. And today, almost more than 20 years later, 25, they are estimating that their shares in Amazon from that investment are worth over $30 billion.
Jesus.
So I'm pretty sure they made that just stuck out to me. Like if you invested, and I mean Amazon, when Amazon went public in 1997, $18 a share. I mean, I think it's up to probably what, 250 something, 300 even maybe. I'm not sure. I can look that up as we're, but it's just crazy. I mean, like
So
the amount of money that they have.
that's
Oh,
pretty insane.
I was way off. It's 2 grand a share now.
Oh.
So yeah.
So my next scene was when they talked about the Integrated Joint Operations Program. This is, I believe, it's a huge server, uh, for China. And when I say huge, I mean it's ginormous. And all data from Chinese citizens flows into it, flows through it, and this is all powered by AI, which tries to identify behavior that the government considers bad or wrong, and anyone suspicious is detained and sent away to these camps, internment camps or whatever. Then I did a little more research on this, and I found Business Insider. They did have a picture on their website what some of the questions this thing asks. The headline is China uses intrusive surveillance app to track its Muslim minority with technology that could be exported to the rest of the world. So this picture shows it's just about a person and vehicle mismatch. So someone who's not in the right vehicle. So the question: name of person who bought gas, gender of person who bought gas, ethnicity of the person, national ID number of who bought gas, the address, the name of the gas station, address of the station, the time of the gas station. So these questions are really specific questions to figure out who that person is if they're found in the wrong car. So Business Insider, quoting their website, the app asks Xinjiang authorities to grill citizens and log via their phones an array of information, including their height, blood type, and vehicle registration number. The Human or HRW reported. It also asks officials to glean intrusive personal information from citizens, including political views, whether they communicate with their relatives abroad, and even their use of birth control, the researcher said. Many Uyghurs have been disappeared and detained for bizarre reasons, including setting clocks to a different time zone than Beijing's, wearing veils, and communicating with people who have gone abroad. Xinjiang's authorities currently have the right to stop any Uyghur citizens in the region, question them, search their phones, and detain them if necessary. So this thing's definitely an intrusion of human rights, like having these authorities grill citizens, asking them questions, very personal questions. Especially it's just towards the Uyghur population.
I'd be scared to live in China, honestly.
I would be really scared. And after I just
Yeah.
got done watching Strange Parts build his own iPhone in a Chinese market, and I was thinking, oh, how cool it would be to live there and do that. But after watching this, I do not want to go
Yeah.
there. So
Closing
well,
or
I have some. I have a few more interesting scenes
Oh,
that are
all right.
not not huge, but they're pretty relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So Huawei, they did mention Huawei. This Huawei's been in our news recently. They work big time in Xinjiang, and they insist that their work there is just general. And in fact, they are not. Huawei is connected to the human rights problems in Xinjiang. And we know Huawei doesn't have such a good past with the U.S. They were accused of presenting an espionage that the U.S. identified, and we warned our citizens that not to buy Huawei, and I believe it's banned. Um, and this really one of actually this is a big talking point. Something that was talked about in the film was how the Xinjiang region was a test site for surveillance. Um, and if these tests went well, security would be this surveillance system would be brought into the rest of China. And the way I saw this is what better region to test on Xinjiang. The majority of the population is Muslim Chinese or Uyghur, and since the new president of China, he's been persecuting Uyghurs, and religious sites from like Muslim religious sites have been mysteriously destroyed. And Frontline did ask China about this, and their comment was, "We destroyed one because of safety hazards, but none others have been affected."
Yeah. That's a lie.
But yeah, but then there was surveillance footage, or not satellite pictures, I mean, of multiple sites slowly being destroyed.
Yeah. So I
Um,
mean, they're purposely doing it.
so I just have some like single sentences here. Um, the tech is good enough to recognize words on phone calls, so these people have to talk in codes. The one thing was they're going to study, which means they've been taken away to a camp. China tracks phone calls from out of country. Oh, okay. So I was going to talk about this earlier. The when people get tested, um, they or questioned, I should say, they start off with 100 points, and they ask personal questions, different categories. I couldn't catch an example of some of the questions they said in the film, but you get -10 points if you answer wrong or they don't like your answer. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's zero you have to get to, but if you lose enough points, you get sent away. Um,
That's yeah.
how I already mentioned houses are marked with barcodes. They have cameras on every single street, and these cameras are so sophisticated that it includes facial expressions, so they can find that out just through the cameras. So
Hey, see, that's what if Amazon's supplying them with that because they have
you
their it's called recognition with a K, and that's like their new face recognition
you
technology
you
that
never
is
know.
basically a thing. So
So just why this is muckraking? This was one of the questions on the document you gave us. Um, So the definition of muckraking states the action of searching out and publicizing scandalous information about famous people in an underhanded way. That was from Google. Thank you, Google. In this case, Lee, he went undercover to gain information from companies in China to reveal what is really going on in the Xinjiang region of China. So he pretty much is going, searching out and publicizing pretty sketch information that China is keeping from their citizens and the world.
yeah.
So, any closing thoughts, Aiden?
So yeah, it was I really liked it. I mean, I'll probably watch it again. We rented it for 30 days off Amazon Prime so I could watch it on the TV. I watched it with my mom actually, and I really liked it. I mean, because I am a big fan of Amazon. We have their Amazon Alexa. Um,
We don't
you
use it
know,
though. Mom leaves it
yeah. Well,
unplugged.
yeah, our
She's
mom.
suspicious.
Well, that was another thing. They think Alexa is tracking what we think, even when it's not on
A
technically.
100%.
So yeah, there's a lot of like creepy stuff going on there, which you never know. But hey, Bezos can do whatever he wants.
When you have that much
So
money, you
yeah,
can
and
do
he
what
really does.
literally whatever you want.
So it did do a good job of exposing the bad working conditions and um it did a great job of that actually, and it was asking the higher ups in Amazon questions that they didn't have answers to, and it kind of made them look like they didn't know everything, and it like made them look like they weren't as powerful as they thought they were. And I mean, some of the reactions to when they were asked these questions about working and how quick these employees can barely walk at the end of the day, when they were asked these questions, they just said, "Oh, well, we pay them a lot. We give them benefits," and that was their only answers. It wasn't really, "Oh, we're trying our best." Like there wasn't a lot of that. It was just, "Oh, well, we're getting robots. Oh, so you're going to get rid of all the jobs." So that's just
Uh,
overall. I really liked the film. It was good. It
so
was really good.
so I also really enjoyed my China Undercover. I think it did a really good job of exposing what actually is going on in China, or specifically the Xinjiang region, the oppressiveness of the Uyghurs, which is spelled Uyghur, something like that. Uyghur, pronounced weird. But just simply one watch through it, it really showed how that the Chinese government is just flat out lying to other countries, the world, of what's truly going on in their countries, and how they're using this surveillance system to track what people do, and if people are getting out of line. And what basically the new president wants is to have a perfect 100% Chinese society, and he wants to rid everyone else, starting with the Uyghurs. And
Hmm.
he wants the Chinese language to be the first language. I think it's Mandarin. He's trying to get rid of and schools get rid of all these languages. This was
We offer a Mandarin Chinese class. That's for
yeah,
St. Francis.
yeah, funny joke. Our mom actually signed us up for this because we
As a
didn't tell
joke
her we
question,
wanted
yeah.
as a joke, and it almost actually happened. So thank God we got out of that. This was funny
So
because
like,
I just
damn.
watched the what's it called? Uh, what's the movie called where they go inside North Korea? The Interview. This was funny because I just watched The Interview and how it shows how that a dictator, brutal, what could happen. So I think this kind of relates to this, and really, if we don't do something about China's mass surveillance on
Mhm.
system and basic denial of human rights, that this could turn into a pretty serious dictatorship. Now, I'm not saying something like Hitler level, but something close to it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it. Me and Aiden, we watched our films, enjoyed them,
Yeah.
did a
We'll
podcast.
try to edit this and get it out to you by later today maybe.
Hopefully Ryan Reynolds reaches out to me, tweets back
Yeah,
at
it's
me.
probably highly likely.
Yeah,
Unlikely, sorry.
unlikely. But
So
what we get? I think we hit like 40 minutes, 43 minutes. We got
40 minutes, yeah.
good timing. All
Good.
right.
All
Peace
right.
out, Mr.
Thanks,
Kiefer.
Mr. Kiefer. Hope you like it.
Hope you have a good Easter break.
Stay safe. Stay
Stay
safe.
safe. Don't
I
cough.
got Supreme Oreo cookies for sale. If
If you
you
want any Oreos, hit
you're looking
Aiden
to
up.
buy some, got 24 packs in total.
We're
Spent
making
about
business
$100 on
cards.
Oreo cookies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
All
already
right.
selling a few, so we're doing good. All right.
Peace out.
See ya.